The twin suns were dipping below the jagged horizon of Kaelaris. 7, casting long shadows across the rocky surface. Dust swirled in the thin air, making the barren landscape seem alive, restless. Captain Lena Voss crouched behind a cluster of jagged rocks, her breath steady despite the pounding of her heart. Beside her, Drake Kieran fumbled with a scanner, his fingers trembling slightly. He tried to appear calm, but the way his shoulders tensed betrayed him. "They're close," Lena whispered, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "Keep your voice down." Drake nodded, swallowing hard. He had never faced the aliens before. Most humans hadn't. Stories filtered back from the frontier spoke of Xerath warriors, towering, bio-armored creatures with strength that could crush a human without effort. But what terrified him most was not their strength. It was the way they thought, intelligent, precise, relentless. Lena had seen them in combat simulations, but reality was something else entirely. "We just need to get to the shuttle," Drake murmured, glancing at the shimmering heat waves in the distance where the landing pad waited. "1 more mile, and we're safe." Lena shook her head. "Safe isn't a word I use here. Not anymore. Just move when I say." They had been scavenging for rare minerals, vitally important for human colonies. When the ground trembled under them, at first they thought it was a seismic tremor, common on Kaelaris. 7. But the tremor carried a rhythm, a pattern, deliberate. Lena's heart skipped. This wasn't a quake. It was footsteps, big ones. Before either of them could react, a shadow fell across the rocks. Drake froze, eyes wide. Lena stayed crouched, muscles coiled like springs. The shadow moved, and then they saw it. Xerath. Towering over 7 feet tall, muscles layered beneath bio-armor that seemed to shift like liquid metal. Its face was covered, but the eyes glinted yellow in the fading light. Lena's mind raced. There was no cover in the open terrain. Running would be suicide. She raised a hand, signaling Drake to stay. The alien stepped closer, its movements eerily silent for something so massive. Its gaze locked on them, unflinching, calculating. Then it spoke, and the sound cut through the wind like a blade. Its voice was a whisper, low, measured, carrying a lethal promise. "If you run, I will execute you." Drake's jaw dropped and he stumbled backward, tripping over a rock. Lena's hand shot out, steadying him. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic was the enemy now. "Easy," she whispered. "Just breathe. Listen to me, Drake. We can get out of this. We have to think, not act." The alien made no move to attack, but its presence was suffocating. Lena studied it, noticing subtle shifts in its stance, the slight twitch of its fingers, as if anticipating her next move. It wasn't just strong, it was thinking, predicting, analyzing. She realized something crucial. They weren't just prey. They were interesting, Drake whispered, voice trembling. "What does it want?" Lena didn't answer immediately. The alien's eyes were fixed on them. Whatever it wanted, it would get it with strength first and subtlety second. But humans had other weapons, ones the alien couldn't sense. Intelligence, creativity, morale, hope. "We move when I say," she finally said, her voice firm.
"We don't run. Not yet."
They remained frozen as the alien circled them, each step deliberate, silent. Lena noticed something in its gait, a rhythm that could be predicted. If they timed it, they might slip past. But before she could plan, a shrill whistle cut through the air, and another shadow appeared on the horizon. More Xerath warriors, moving in coordinated silence. Drake's face turned pale. "We're surrounded." Lena's mind raced. They had no weapons, barely any supplies, and now escape seemed impossible. Yet she refused to surrender mentally. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. The stories of Earth's history were full of cunning and courage. She drew on every lesson she had learned in the military and as a leader. Fear was contagious, but control was infectious. She had to control the fear, for both of them. A low hum vibrated beneath the ground. Lena's ears picked up the sound, mechanical, alive, like the ship was part of the planet. The Zereth were not alone. This was their hunting ground. The realization hit her that this was not a random ambush. They had been tracked. Every step they took, every signal from their scanners, had been noted. The lead Zereth stepped forward, raising a clawed hand. Lena recognized the gesture from military training. A signal. Others froze in place. Lena's pulse quickened, but she stayed calm. This was a test, a psychological game. The alien wanted compliance, fear, hesitation. Humans had ways of winning such games. Drake's fingers brushed Lena's arm. I can't do this. You can, she said firmly. You're still breathing. That means you can fight, not with weapons. Not yet, but with your mind. Focus on me. Lena's gaze swept the terrain. The rocks offered cover if they moved quickly. The shadows of the setting suns created confusing patterns. If they timed it right, they could slip between the patrols. On my mark, she whispered. The alien's eyes flicked toward her, sensing movement, yet it stayed silent. Its head tilted slightly, almost curious. Lena realized something shocking. The Zereth were not just predators. They were students of behavior. They wanted to understand their prey before destroying it. She counted slowly in her mind. 1, 2, 3, and then she lunged to the side, dragging Drake with her. The aliens reacted instantly, but not fast enough. Lena's knowledge of human reflexes and timing allowed them to slip behind a rock formation. Dust exploded around them as the Zereth struck the empty air. Drake gasped, We made it. Lena shook her head, scanning their surroundings. Not yet? They're testing us. They want to see if we run, panic, or freeze. Don't give them that satisfaction. Stay sharp. The group of Zereth moved as one, scanning the area. But Lena noticed something. The aliens' coordination, while precise, was predictable. They followed patterns, logic, hierarchy. Humans could exploit that. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning. Lena and Drake huddled in the rocky shadows, devising a plan. They had no weapons, no ship, no reinforcements, but they had their wits. Lena remembered old Earth tactics, guerrilla strategies, improvisation. Humans were unpredictable, flexible, resourceful. Zereth had underestimated that. Then came the subtle sound that made her stomach tighten. The low hum again, closer now. A massive alien ship descended silently, landing near the horizon. Its metallic skin shimmered like liquid, absorbing the sunlight. The Zerath were herding them toward it, closing the perimeter. Lena forced herself to stay calm. Every detail mattered. The landing ramp, the guards' patrol patterns, even the wind direction. All could be used. She crouched low, whispering to Drake. We follow the rhythm of their patrols. We observe, memorize, and when the moment comes, we exploit it. Not with strength, with thought. Humanity survives because we think when others rely on power alone. Drake nodded, but fear lingered in his eyes. Lena placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing reassuringly. We're not dead yet, not even close. Just trust me. The lead Zereth approached, eyes glowing faintly. It crouched slightly, sniffing, scanning. Lena's heart pounded. One wrong move, and Drake and she would be dead instantly. But then the alien did something unexpected. It stepped back, observing the creature's expression, or what passed for one, seemed curious. Lena realized the alien wasn't just hunting. It was studying, testing, learning. That was humanity's first advantage. Zareth relied on brute strength and instinct. Humans had creativity, intuition, courage, and unpredictability.
Night fell.
The twin moons rose, silver and cold. Lena and Drake were still alive, still breathing. They were prisoners now, but not yet defeated. The alien ship loomed ahead, a fortress of alien power, and inside they would face the Zareth warrior who whispered death. But Lena had a plan. And humanity, she reminded herself, always found a way. As the ship's ramp descended with a hiss of alien metal, Lena squeezed Drake's hand. Fear was still there, but so was hope. "They think they've caught us," she whispered. "But they haven't seen what we're capable of yet." Drake swallowed, nodding. For the first time, he felt a spark of determination. Not all hope was gone. Not while Lena led them. Not while humanity still had its mind, its courage, its fire. The Zareth waited, patient, deadly, confident. But humans had survived worse than fearsome aliens. And Lena intended to prove that tonight. The air inside the ship was cold and metallic. The ramp closed behind them with a solid thud. Lena's eyes adjusted to the dim, bioluminescent glow of the corridors. Every sound, every movement of the alien soldiers was a threat. Yet, in her mind, she was already calculating, planning, observing. They had been caught, yes. But humans were never truly prisoners, not when their minds were free. And Lena Voss was human. The interior of the Zareth ship was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. The walls pulsed faintly with light, as though the ship itself were alive. The air hummed with energy, making her skin tingle. Every corridor seemed endless, metallic curves bending in impossible angles, lit by bioluminescent veins that traced across the surfaces like living circuits. Drake stumbled beside her, eyes wide, awed and terrified at once. "They're alive," he whispered, his voice shaking. "The ship—" "It's alive." Lena's hand tightened on his arm. "Focus. We're alive too, for now. Observe everything, every light, every pattern, every patrol." Her voice was calm, but her mind was racing, calculating. Humans were fragile in this world, but brains mattered more than brawn, and they had brains in abundance. The Zareth warrior who had captured them, massive and imposing, led them through the corridors. Its eyes glinted yellow under the bioluminescent glow, scanning them constantly, studying their reactions. Lena noted the slight tilt of its head, the way it assessed Drake with what she interpreted as curiosity mixed with disdain. She realized something crucial. Zaroth were not just hunters. They were students of behavior. They learned from prey. They sought to understand fear, strength, and obedience. That meant humans could fight in ways Zareth did not anticipate. The corridor opened into a larger chamber, filled with alien technology that Lena could barely comprehend. Machines floated in the air, linked by glowing threads of energy. In the center, a platform suspended several human prisoners, who looked exhausted, but alive. They turned their eyes toward Lena and Drake, hope flickering briefly before fear dimmed it again. Lena whispered to Drake, "See them? They're waiting for a mistake. We can't give them that."
Drake swallowed, nodding.
His fear hadn't disappeared, but a spark of resolve began to flicker. "What do? We learn first," Lena said. "Then we act. Patience." The Zareth approached the platform, and Lena saw it speak to the aliens around it. They responded in clicks and hums, a language of precision and discipline. Lena tried to memorize the gestures, the patterns, the rhythm. Every movement could be a clue, every pause a weakness to exploit. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time inside the ship felt distorted. The prisoners were fed, questioned, and observed. Lena noticed that the Zerath never underestimated fear. 1. They expected it, almost thrived on it. But when she spoke to the other humans quietly, she realized that fear could be turned into a tool, if guided correctly. "Listen," she whispered one night to Drake and a few nearby prisoners. "They think they control everything. But they don't. They don't understand our creativity, our unpredictability. They measure with strength. We measure with thought." A few heads nodded, uncertain but inspired. Lena's presence was a lifeline. Humans had survived worse than this, and she reminded them of that, not through words alone, but through confidence, the way she moved, observed, and never seemed fully afraid. The following day, Lena noticed a pattern in the patrols. Zerath moved in pairs along the corridors, one always observing, one always following. The intervals between movements were predictable. She memorized the pattern, timing their steps, breathing, and actions carefully. She whispered to Drake during a brief moment when the aliens were distracted. "We need to observe the security nodes, the ship's core functions. If we can understand even a fraction, we gain a weapon they can't anticipate." Drake hesitated, glancing at the massive alien who had caught them. "We'd have to get close. And if we're caught..." Lena shook her head. "Then we die. But if we wait and do nothing, we are already dead. At least this way we have a chance." Late that night, Lena and Drake slipped quietly from their temporary holding area, using shadows, the reflections of the pulsating walls, and careful timing. They moved closer to a corridor that seemed to lead deeper into the ship. Lena's mind raced as she noted every panel, every wire, every sound. Humans were small, yes, but their minds were agile. Drake whispered, "Do you think we can actually do this?"
"Yes," Lena replied.
"Not because we're stronger, but because we're unpredictable. We adapt. That's why we survive." The corridor opened into a chamber filled with alien consoles, glowing in soft blue and green. Lena studied them carefully. The panels displayed symbols she did not understand, yet patterns were clear. Buttons, levers, and screens linked to the ship's systems. Here was an opportunity. If she could figure out even a single function, they could manipulate the ship. Drake hesitated, then pointed to a sequence of lights that blinked in a repeating pattern. "Maybe these controls correspond to the doors? Or the sections?" Lena nodded. "Good observation. Watch closely." But Zerath relies on logic, pattern. But humans, we improvise. We turn patterns into opportunities. As they studied the systems, a sudden movement made them freeze. The massive Zerath warrior had appeared, stepping into the chamber silently. Its eyes glowed faintly, and its posture radiated authority. Lena's pulse quickened, but she stayed calm, forcing herself to breathe slowly. "You are curious," the alien whispered, voice low and resonant.
"You observe, you plan."
"Why?" Lena met its gaze, unflinching. Fear surged inside her, but she let it pass without showing it. "Because we survive," she said simply. The alien tilted its head, analyzing. "Most prey run, most prey beg, most prey die. And we are not most prey," Lena said. A flicker of surprise, or perhaps respect, passed across the alien's stance. It moved closer, studying them, and Lena noted a crucial detail. It expected instinct, reaction, panic. They gave it nothing. Instead, they remained calm, deliberate, thinking. The alien whispered something to its companions, and they moved aside, giving Lena and Drake access to the consoles. It was a test, she realized, a subtle probe to measure their intelligence, their reactions. Drake glanced at her. "Do you think it respects us?" Cor lauded. Lena shrugged, Respect isn't necessary. Opportunity is. For hours, they observed, touching panels cautiously, memorizing symbols and mapping connections in their minds. Lena found that certain sequences seemed to control doors, others the energy flow to different sections. Even a small disruption could create a window for escape or sabotage. "This is it," she whispered.
"This is our chance! Not to fight, but to outthink them."
Human minds against alien muscle. Always remember, that is our advantage. They returned to the holding area under cover of darkness, hearts racing, but minds sharper. Lena briefed the other prisoners quietly, sharing observations, patterns, and timing. She emphasized caution, patience, and unity. Fear had to be controlled. Panic was the enemy. Days passed. Lena and Drake continued their careful studies, slipping away whenever patrols allowed, learning the rhythm of the ship and the Zerath. They discovered that the massive alien who had captured them was not cruel without reason. It valued intelligence, observation, and courage. These traits, Lena realized, could be used. Then came the first real test. A human prisoner panicked, screaming as a Zerath passed. The alien moved instantly, towering over the human, eyes glowing. Lena and the others froze, fearing the worst. But the Zerath merely observed, a silent warning in its stance, then moved on. "Control," Lena whispered to the group. "Always control. That was your first lesson." That night, Lena and Drake huddled in a shadowed corner. "We've learned a lot," she said. Not just about the ship, but about them. They can be predicted. They respect courage, even if they don't value life as we do. We're not helpless. Not yet." Drake nodded, feeling a strength growing within him. Lena's presence had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that humans had survived worse than this. Strategy, cunning, and bravery were tools, more potent than any weapon. The alien warrior who had whispered death the first night now watched them closely, silently measuring, learning. Lena understood this. Every move, every misstep would be analyzed, but so would every clever act, every spark of ingenuity. Humanity could fight in ways the Zerath could not predict. As the twin moons rose outside, casting silver light across the ship's hull, Lena whispered to Drake, "Tomorrow, we make our first move. Not an attack, not yet, but a demonstration. They need to learn that humans are not weak. That's our advantage. Courage, intelligence, and unpredictability. They've never faced that before." Drake swallowed, nodding. The fear remained, but it was tempered with purpose. Humanity had a spark that even the Zerath could not extinguish. They were small, yes, fragile, yes, but clever, determined, and unbreakable in ways that muscle alone could not measure. The ship hummed around them, alive, alien, threatening. But Lena's mind was sharper, brighter, and unyielding. Humans had survived worse. Humans had overcome impossible odds. And tomorrow, they would begin to prove it. The hum of the alien ship vibrated through Lena's bones. Every pulse of energy, every flicker of bioluminescent light reminded her of how carefully they had to move. The corridors seemed longer tonight, darker, more alive. The Zerath were everywhere, patrolling with silent precision. Yet Lena had learned their rhythm, their patterns, and most importantly, their psychology. They valued strength and obedience, but they underestimated humans' ingenuity. That would be their edge. Drake trailed her closely, eyes darting to every shadow. He had grown stronger, braver, under Lena's guidance, but fear still lingered, coiling tight in his chest. He glanced at the other prisoners, huddled silently, hoping not to draw attention. Lena caught his glance and nodded. Steady, patience, observation. That's our weapon tonight. They slipped along the walls, moving between the patrolling Zerath. Lena's heart pounded with adrenaline, but her mind was sharp, mapping escape routes. noting which corridors could conceal movement, which chambers contained energy cores, and which panels could be manipulated. The ship was alien, yes, but it was a machine built on logic and pattern. Logic and pattern could be exploited. "Here," she whispered, pointing to a panel glowing faintly in green.
"That controls the section doors. We open and close them, we can trap patrols, redirect their attention."
"We create confusion, not strength, strategy." Drake's hand shook slightly as he mimicked her gestures. "If we get caught, you won't," Lena said firmly. "Not if we move like this. Not if we keep our minds sharper than their muscles." They spent hours experimenting, careful not to alert any patrols. Each time a door clicked, each flicker of a panel, Lena observed the response of the Zirath. One guard paused, head tilting, eyes scanning the corridor when a door shifted. Another hissed, issuing clicks in response. They were learning, adapting. But Lena's humans learned faster. That was the advantage. Then came the first opportunity. The massive Zerath warrior who had whispered death the first night appeared, towering as always, eyes flicking over the prisoners. Lena's pulse raced. He didn't speak, but she felt the scrutiny. He had begun to recognize her as a threat, not in strength, but in mind. Lena whispered to Drake, "This is it. Watch carefully. Follow my lead." She slipped forward, touching a control panel with a deliberate motion, causing a sequence of doors to shift, closing a hallway behind a patrolling Zerath pair. The massive warrior's eyes narrowed. He moved forward, scanning, but Lena had already retreated to shadow, dragging Drake with her. "What did we just do?" Drake whispered, wide-eyed. "Disrupted their patrol," Lena said. "Small move, but significant. They didn't expect it. That hesitation, that's all we need, sometimes." As the night deepened, Lena and Drake moved to another section of the ship, the engineering core. It was vast, filled with pulsing conduits of energy and floating machinery that defied human understanding. Lena observed the nodes controlling the ship's energy flow. If she could manipulate just one core function, they could create chaos, distraction, maybe even disable the ship's weapons temporarily. Drake's voice was barely audible. We could fight them without touching them." "Exactly," Lena said. "We're not their equal in strength. We are their equal in thought. And that is what terrifies them." The Zerath appeared again, moving along a higher level of the core, scanning for anomalies. Lena froze, pressing Drake against a support beam, holding her breath. The alien's yellow eyes flicked over them, sensing presence but finding nothing. Its head tilted in curiosity, then it moved on. Lena exhaled quietly. Every encounter, every close call strengthened her understanding. The aliens were confident, precise and proud, but predictable. Lena motioned the other prisoners forward. "We need to act as one. Small disruptions, timed together. Confusion is our weapon. Unity is our strength." A few prisoners nodded, eyes shining with nervous hope. Lena gave clear instructions. Doors, energy panels, movement patterns. Each human had a role. Not fighting with strength, but with mind, timing, and observation. The first execution of their plan began with a simple shift. A corridor door clicked and moved, cutting off a patrolling pair. Confused, the Zerath paused, signaling to their companions with clicks and hums. Lena pressed another panel, redirecting energy briefly, causing lights to flicker. The ship seemed to pulse, alive with sudden disruption. Drake's eyes widened as a panel shifted under his touch, redirecting power to another section. "We're actually doing it," he whispered. "Yes," Lena said, voice calm but triumphant. "We're, unpredictable. That's our strength." The Zerath warrior appeared again, massive and imposing. He hissed, clicking sharply, moving to investigate. Lena's pulse quickened. Every second counted. If he discovered the source of the disruption too soon, their plan would fail, and they would die. But the humans had learned to move like shadows, coordinated and silent. Lena guided them through sequences, each step calculated. The massive warrior's eyes flicked from anomaly to anomaly, but he could not anticipate human improvisation. They were not following logic in the alien sense. They were following instinct, observation, and unpredictability. Then came the boldest part. Lena and Drake manipulated a central energy conduit, causing a localized overload. Alarms blared, lights flickered violently, and a section of the ship's interior temporarily lost power. The Zereth warriors hissed and clicked, rushing to investigate. But Lena's humans were already in motion, slipping through alternate corridors. For the first time, fear mingled with exhilaration. They were not merely surviving, they were forcing the Zereth to react, to think, to hesitate. Drake glanced at Lena, a mix of awe and fear in his eyes. "We're actually controlling them?" "Yes," she said, voice low but steady. "Humans always adapt. We survive by thinking when others rely on strength. This is what we are." The massive Zereth warrior appeared once more directly in front of the engineering core. His presence filled the chamber, massive and imposing, yet Lena felt a spark of something new. Caution in him. He had underestimated them before. Now he sensed unpredictability, intelligence, and courage. Lena stepped forward slightly, eyes locked on the alien. "We're not weak," she said quietly but firmly. "We are humans, and you will learn that in time." The Zereth tilted its head, hissing sharply. For a moment, it studied her, assessing. Lena saw something almost imperceptible, a flicker of respect, or perhaps curiosity. It had not encountered humans like this before. Small, fragile, but utterly fearless when guided by purpose in mind. Lena turned to Drake and the others. "Now," she whispered, "we move together. Disrupt again, retreat again. Keep them guessing. We cannot fight strength, but we can fight minds." The prisoners nodded, moving like shadows, coordinated and precise. The ship's corridors were filled with confusion, alarms and flickering lights, yet Lena and Drake navigated it with the clarity of purpose. Each disruption, each shift, undermined the alien confidence while building human resolve. Hours passed. The humans had forced the Zereth into a reactive state, constantly moving to contain disruptions, yet failing to catch the source. Lena observed patterns, noted responses, and refined their tactics. Every mistake the aliens made was a lesson, every hesitation a weapon. Finally, Lena allowed herself a brief glance at Drake. His fear had been replaced with determination, awe, and resolve. "We can win this," he whispered. "Yes," Lena said softly. "Not by strength, but by thought, by courage, by human spirit." The massive Zereth warrior, now more cautious than before, hissed and retreated temporarily. Lena knew this was significant. They had forced respect, not merely fear. The aliens were learning that humans were different. They did not rely solely on muscle or instinct. They relied on mind, emotion, unity, and courage. Lena turned to the other prisoners. "Tonight we proved something. Not to them, not fully, but to ourselves. We are humans. Small, fragile, yes, but clever, courageous, and unpredictable. That is how we survive. That is how we will triumph." The prisoners murmured their agreement, a quiet but powerful affirmation. Fear still existed, but it was tempered with hope. Humanity had endured worse. Humanity had overcome impossible odds before. And now, inside the heart of an alien warship, they had shown that human ingenuity and courage could challenge even the most fearsome predator. Lena allowed herself a brief smile. The battle was far from over. The Zarath were still formidable, their power immense. But the humans had struck the first blow, not with weapons, but with intellect, timing, and unity. They had taken the first step in reclaiming control, and for the first time, the massive alien warrior had to pause and think. Tomorrow, Lena knew, they would strike again, but tonight they had proven that even against overwhelming power, humans could fight and win, not by force, but by the strength of their minds and the courage of their hearts. The air inside the alien ship hummed with tension. Every pulse of energy, every flicker of the bioluminescent walls, made Lena's nerves taut. The ship had become both a prison and a battlefield. The humans were no longer mere prisoners. They were strategists, observers, and tacticians, ready to turn the aliens' own confidence against them. Lena moved quietly through the corridors, Drake at her side. The other prisoners followed, each carrying a small piece of the plan, every action coordinated. The massive Exareth warrior who had whispered death loomed in her mind, a reminder of the stakes. One wrong move, and they would all die. "We can do this," she whispered to Drake. "Not by strength, but by mind. Watch closely, follow my lead, and stay calm." Drake nodded. His fear had been replaced by focus. He had learned from Lena to observe, to calculate, to improvise. Together, they were no longer prey. They were adversaries capable of turning the tables. The first part of the plan was to disrupt the ship's control systems. Lena approached a glowing console she had memorized over the past days. She touched a sequence of panels, causing doors to shift and energy conduits to reroute. Alarms blared in response, red lights flashing. The Zarath soldiers hissed and clicked, rushing to investigate. "Good," Lena whispered. "Now we make them chase shadows." The humans moved like shadows themselves, slipping through corridors, rerouting patrols, and creating confusion. Each disruption was small but cumulative, forcing the Zarath to expend energy and attention on reactive movements. The massive warrior appeared, his glowing eyes scanning, his massive body moving with silent precision. But Lena had anticipated him. "Drake, the core door," she hissed. Together they approached the engineering core's main access. Lena manipulated the controls, opening a hatch into a maintenance shaft. They slipped inside, dragging the other prisoners along. The shaft was narrow, claustrophobic, but it was safe, for now. Outside, the massive Zarath rumbled, his clicks sharp and urgent. Lena realized something important. He had begun to hesitate. They had forced caution where before there had been confidence. Humans were small, fragile, but unpredictable. That unpredictability was a weapon. They reached a central control hub, floating panels and holographic displays surrounding them. Lena touched the controls cautiously, recalling every pattern she had memorized. Her fingers danced over alien symbols, rerouting energy flows, redirecting power to temporary shields, and shutting down weapons systems in one sector. "Drake, follow exactly," she whispered. "Timing is everything. One mistake, and it's over." The alarms intensified. Zarath soldiers rushed toward the disruption, but Lena and Drake had planned escape routes, misdirections, and traps. The aliens moved as a unit, precise but predictable. The humans exploited every pause, every hesitation. Then, the massive Zarath warrior appeared, stepping through the doorway with an aura of menace. He was enormous, his armor shimmering under the alien light. His yellow eyes locked onto Lena. The other humans froze, but Lena did not flinch. She held his gaze, steady and unafraid. "You are bold," he hissed, voice low but resonant. "You disrupt." "You interfere. Why?" "Because we are human," Lena replied. "We survive because we think. We fight because we are clever. We endure because we refuse to be broken." The alien's head tilted, considering. "Considering It had never encountered humans like this. Fragile but intelligent, small but courageous. For the first time, hesitation flickered across his stance. Lena pressed another sequence of panels. Energy surged through the ship, temporarily disabling the communication array and redirecting power from weapons to non-lethal sectors. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and the ship shuddered. The Zareth soldiers stumbled, caught off guard by the unexpected disruption. "Move!" Lena hissed. The humans sprang into action, slipping through corridors, closing doors behind them to block pursuit. The massive Zaroth roared in frustration, his clicks sharp and urgent. They reached a chamber where they could access the ship's main energy conduit. Lena realized that with one more careful adjustment, they could create a major distraction, a temporary shutdown that would allow them to escape or even take control of key systems. "Drake, are you ready?" she whispered. "I'm ready," he said, voice steady. He had grown from a fearful engineer into a decisive partner, capable of improvisation and courage. Together they manipulated the conduit. Energy surged violently, lights flaring, machinery groaning. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Zara soldiers rushed in, but Lena had anticipated their movements, using doors and corridors to isolate them. Confusion spread among the aliens. The massive warrior appeared last, towering, enraged. Lena met his gaze once more. "You may be strong," she said, voice unwavering. "But we are human, and humans never surrender." For a moment, the massive Zaroth hesitated. Lena saw the calculation in his eyes, strength versus intelligence, instinct versus unpredictability. Then he clicked sharply, a sound of acknowledgement, and for the first time, retreating slightly, giving them space. The humans pressed on. They reached the observation deck, where the ship's navigation systems were exposed. Lena touched the controls, using her knowledge of the energy flows to reroute the ship's path. The vessel tilted slightly, automated systems recalibrating in response to the disruption. She smiled faintly. Humans were small, fragile, yes, but capable of bending even this alien warship to their advantage. Drake watched, awe and admiration in his eyes. We're really doing it," he said.
"Yes?" Lena said softly.
"We're showing them what humans are capable of. Not just strength, not just endurance, but ingenuity, courage, and unity." The massive Zareth warrior appeared once more, stepping onto the observation deck. He towered above them, but Lena stood her ground, unwavering. The other humans were behind her, coordinated, ready. They had disrupted systems, created misdirection, and forced hesitation. They had taken the first step in turning fear into control. "You are different," the Zareth whispered. "Most prey run. Most prey panic. Most prey die." "And we are not most prey," Lena said. "We are human. And we survive because we adapt, because we think, because we refuse to be broken." The Zareth hesitated, observing, as though realizing the truth of her words. Lena pressed the final sequence of controls, triggering a temporary shutdown of the ship's weapons and isolating the remaining guards in a section of the vessel. Sparks flew, lights dimmed, alarms blaring. The humans had forced the aliens to react, and in doing so, had gained the upper hand. "Now," Lena whispered to the prisoners.
"Move together! Stick to the plan!"
Unpredictable, united, unstoppable. They moved in unison, slipping through corridors, past disoriented Zareth soldiers. The massive warrior followed, but he was cautious now, unsure of what the humans might do next. Every action Lena had taken forced him to calculate, hesitate, and adapt. Humans were not just prey. They were a force that could not be measured by muscle alone. Finally, they reached the docking bay. Their stolen shuttle sat ready, powered by what Lena had rerouted from the ship's systems. They climbed aboard, hearts pounding, but minds focused. Lena initiated the launch sequence, her hands steady on the controls. The ship shuddered as they disengaged from the alien vessel. The massive Zerath appeared on the observation platform, watching them escape. Lena caught his gaze one last time. There was acknowledgement there, a recognition that humans were different, clever, and dangerous in ways muscle alone could not measure. The shuttle shot into the void, leaving the alien ship behind. The humans breathed collectively, exhaustion and relief mingling with exhilaration. They had survived, not by power, but by thought, courage, and unity. Drake turned to Lena, eyes wide.
We actually did it. We survived.
Lena smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute.
We did more than survive.
We showed them what humans are capable of. Strength isn't always in weapons. Power isn't always in muscle. Humans survive because we think, because we adapt, and because we never give up. The twin suns of Calaras. 7 rose in the distance, casting golden light over the horizon. Lena and the other humans looked out from the shuttle, hearts full of triumph and purpose. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not by fighting like the Zerath, but by thinking, adapting, and staying united. The alien ship faded into the distance, but Lena knew it would not forget them. Humans were small, yes, and fragile, but intelligent, courageous, and unpredictable, and that was a force the universe could never measure and never defeat. For the first time in days, Lena allowed herself to relax. They were free, but more importantly, they had proven the truth of humanity. Even in the face of overwhelming power, humans could survive, outthink, and triumph. And they had only just begun.